Welcome to the Swayam Prabha series in computer science. As a part of this series, this is a course on artificial intelligence, and in this course we are in unit 5, MD module 36, where we are dealing with the generative AI of different prompts. In the last session we saw the components of prompts, the different components, basically the formula of D, R, C, E, F, where D corresponds to directive, R role, C context, E example, and F as a format. So, with 5 different components, how do we create a prompt? Basically we started with that, and we also did the definition and what each component would have in effect. Now, how do we decide which component to be in that particular prompt? Say, suppose there is a simple task like what is the capital of France. That is very simple and factual. So, it is just one answer, which is Paris. So, start the task, and if it is very simple and factual, then if this is S, it goes towards this, and review the specific prompt. Just say what is the capital of France, and then the prompt is ready. So, this prompt we can directly get into LLMs and we can give back the answer. Suppose if it is not, suppose the prompt is something like summarize a big document and give the list in 5 statements. In that case, it goes into this component called the directive. This is the first component that we saw, which is the directive. It stands for D, which is D here. And expertise, this directive, if again it is just a summarization and without any role, or just summarize the task in 5 ways, then it goes into the review and then the prompt is ready. Suppose if an expertise is required, say the expertise in the sense summarize, as in the case assume that the LLM itself has the role of a nutrition fitness enthusiast or teacher. So, if that role is specified, then after directive it goes into add role, and then we can also specify the constraints or the limitations or the audience. So, there we have to add the context. This is the second component, role. The third component, context, where we would have the background information, the relevance of data along with the constraints, the limitations in fact. And that again, if that is sufficient, it can go straight ahead here, it can also go here straight away, or if it is not required, then we have additional thing called as the formatting if it is required. Say the list or the summarization, it should be described in a bullet point. That is kind of the format that can be specified here, or it can be either as number of words here, if the constraints are mentioned, the number of words, or the summarization can be in terms of JSON format. So, those can be specified here, and along with that the examples, how the example should be structured. And actually this whatever I mentioned in the previous, this JSON format or bullet points actually will come here. The formatting structure is here. In this case, the examples are given. These examples will be in the form of one shot, zero shot, or one shot, which I will be proceeding in this session in detail. So, some examples can be given so that an LLM can understand it better. So, and with all these components, the prompt can be made effective. So, it can be made accurate also. So, having the 5 components, directive, role, context, example, and format. So, this is the example format where we can give 1, 2 or many examples, and then the formatting structure like I mentioned, whether it is going to be JSON or bullet points or some kind of pattern, the pattern in terms of examples. Along with this we can give the prompt. So, this is roughly the structure of how to decide when we write a prompt. Whether one of it is required or all of it required is depend upon the use case and the user or the prompt type. So, to have a few examples, I have listed some of the prompts here on the left side, and for each of it we can go through whether the essential what is the essential component and which can be skippable or optional. So, if you take the first one, explain quantum entanglement to a 10-year-old. In this case, this first component directive is given. Why? Because it is explain quantum entanglement, this is directive. To a 10-year-old, this is the audience specification, so this is context. So, the essential component are directive and context, and what is skipped? The role is skipped, example is skipped, and format is skipped. The three components are skipped here, and this is a prompt for the two essential components. Take the second example here. You are a career counselor. I am a +2 student unsure about grad school. List 5 career paths with pros, cons in a table. If you see here, we have all the 5 components listed in this prompt. Why? Here the career counselor, this is going to be the role. I am a +2 student unsure about grad school, this is the background information which is the context. List, it is going to be the directive. 5 career paths with pros, cons, this gives some kind of a pattern or an example, and in a table we are specifying the format of it, it should be given as a table. So, this is the format. So, we have all 5 components within this prompt, and there is nothing that is optional, it is none. The third prompt, what is 12 multiplied by 12? This is a simple factual, only the directive. In fact, even it is not even directive, just a simple fact. So, optional except directive, all others are going to be optional here. Fourth example is write a tweet about climate action in the style of Greta Thunberg. Here, write is a directive, and in the style of this prescribes the role. About climate action in this prescribes the context. So, there are 3 components listed here: directive, role and context. Examples and formats, the other components are optional. The last example, convert these meeting notes into action items, and within the square brackets notes, notes is something actual that we are giving into LLM. So, it would do the work within whatever given in the square bracket. Now, we are giving, this is the input item and the output also, this is the pattern that we give, the task owner and deadline. Here, as you can see, there are 3 components that are listed. The first one is directive and the context, the background information, and we need this input and output in the specific format. So, these 3 components are listed as essential ones. The optional ones are role and examples. So far we have seen different components. Now, we will go into this portion of it, which is the standard pattern. What are the standard pattern, or how to add the examples in this aspect of it? We are going into the details of it. So, there are number of types of prompts that are mentioned here. The first is 0 shot prompting, 1 shot prompting, few shot, chain of thought, 0 shot, chain of thought, tree of thoughts, graph of thought, iterative and negative prompting. So, in this session we will be going through each one of the prompting sections, and then we will also take a few examples of each prompt, put it into ChatGPT or any other LLM and see what difference does it make. We will start with the 0 shot prompting, and again this type of prompting, if we see, it comes in this type of component. When we have the examples set here after directive, expertise, role, context and this type of examples, it is right here we are adding the different types of prompts. 0 shot prompting, here as the name prescribes, no examples are provided, it can be provided, and the LLMs would be trained with some knowledge beforehand. all the, and how is it trained? Again, it is based on the neural network training that we did earlier. And when we use zero shot prompting, basically it is for the straightforward task which are very simple and factual. Say this is an example: classify the sentiment of this text. The battery life of this phone is terrible. So if we say this sentence to a person who is just opposite, just standing right in front, and say the battery life is terrible, it means that the sentiment is negative. So is that negative the same sense given by LLM also? That we can check. And zero shot prompting, like this example, where are they used? They can either be used in translation. Translation may be from one language to the other. Summarization, having document of data and summarizing it in 5 statements or to a constraint, or the grammar correction or a classification. The classification can either be whether given 3 particular types. Suppose we have different documents, and take an example of the newspaper articles. One would be with reference to sports, one would be with reference to politics, one would be with reference to some other item, say the entertainment. So given some text, can we classify the topic in a relevant sense? So that can be one of the use case with zero shot prompting. So how is it done? We have the instruction. Instruction is nothing but the prompt, and that we give it into pre-trained knowledge in the LLM, which is already trained. We are not giving anything here, and we get back the answer straight. So this is a straightforward approach. The second one is one shot prompting. One shot prompting, as the name prescribes, we are giving one example here, one or two more examples. Say we say the food was cold. Example is the food was cold, and for this example we are giving the sentiment as negative. So in the earlier case we are not even giving one example, say one pattern here, but here we are giving one example of how the LLM should identify. The food was cold, the sentiment is negative. Now if we give the battery life is terrible, can the LLM give the sentiment as negative or positive? That is the response. So here it would be example that we write, whatever the example that we give, and through this example we will learn the pattern along with the LLM that it already has. The LLM has already had the trained knowledge, and along with it, it will learn the pattern, and when the new input is given, it would process and give back the answer. So the use cases here are going to be, say, translation, one is summarization, grammar correction, and simple type of classification, similar to what we did last time. A few shot prompting, here this is an extension of one shot prompting, where in few shot we will have more number of examples coming into the picture. Say this is form of in context learning, and suppose we want only structured output, we will be using few shot prompting. Say the one example here is we have some JSON which is actually incorrect JSON. JSON is a format we used to give as an input or provide as an output from LLM. So this JSON is one type of input similar to CSV. So from JSON, can we convert that into markdown table? So we are giving one example. Second example, JSON with some unstructured type, and the markdown should be something like the correct one. And there will be third error, messy JSON with, and that can be should be corrected to a markdown table. Given 3 examples, now can the LLM, given a new input, can it continue to correct the pattern and give a correct markdown table as the user wants? So this is an example of few shot prompting. What we will do is we will also try to give the exact examples in ChatGPT and see how it responds. So, the difference between the three types of prompts, zero shot, one shot and few shot prompts. So, in zero shot there are 0 examples, one shot 1 example and few shot 2 to 5 examples, and these should be given within the context itself. And learning, zero shot uses general knowledge within the LLM, one shot it learns from one example plus LLM, and here it uses 2 to 5 multiple examples plus whatever the knowledge it has from LLM. So, this is best for common task, this is for consistent format or tone, and here we want, if we want more complex patterns, we will use this. The flexibility here is high, medium, and here it is again the flexibility is high. Why? Because the user can tweak whatever he wants. The token cost, the meaning of token, I will be explaining it in the next session. Right now assume that each word or each part of the sentence is a token. For now, at least in English statement, suppose I say zero shot, this example 0 is one token and shot is one token. So, for each token there is a cost involved in LLMs, so which I will be speaking in the next session. For now assume that each token has one word. The token cost in terms of zero shot is low, for one shot it is medium. Why? Because we are having only one example, here it is 0 example, so it is low, and for few shot because we are involving more number of tokens, here it is higher. The reliability in zero shot it is medium. Why? Because we are not giving any context with reference to the user, whereas with one shot we have higher cost and with few shot we have the highest reliability because it is more tending towards what the user wants. Now, the next type of prompting is chain of thought prompting, where we are asking the model to reason step by step, where the whole statement is broken down into small intermediate steps, and where we have the math and also the logical statement. Say an example here would be solve the word problem, mathematical word problem, and give it step by step before giving the right answer, or how did the LLM actually solve the right answer. An example here is a farmer has 17 sheep, all but 9 die, how many are left? So, the LLM should go inside and see that is 17 minus 9, and it has to calculate and then give back the correct answer in steps. That is what is expected from the LLM. So, for this type of example is called as chain of thought prompting. The next type of prompting is a zero shot chain of thought, where it is one single step and think step by step with whatever is given from the user. So, it triggers the model reasoning ability, but that is existing within the LLM, but without giving any additional input from the user. So, here an example is how many golf balls fit inside Boeing 747, give step by step answer. So, it has, the LLM has to check what is the size of Boeing 747, what is the volume of golf ball, and divide the volume of Boeing 747 by volume of golf ball, that will give the number of golf balls. So, it should give step by step information of how it solves. Now, the next type of prompt is tree of thought. The earlier one is chain of thought, which is step by step, say, reasoning of giving the answer. This is prompt is tree of thought, where for one particular prompt there are multiple options, and for each path there is a different way to evaluate and choose the best one. Say, suppose an example here is plan a one-day trip to Chennai. So, the goal is, this is the prompt that is given, that may be given to LLM, and the goal is to, what is the best one-day trip? Either option, there are 3 options here that I have listed, so it can even be more. This is just an example, where option A may be beach, marina or ECR, option B is heritage temple, and option C is food, city and tour. see to it that these three options are not contradicting to each other, in the sense each is a hierarchy in itself. This goes in this parallel fashion, all the three are parallel. So, in this case, what is the evaluation? The second case, the evaluation, and third, what is the evaluation? So, the cost will be cost, time, whether it would be evaluated, and based on this evaluation, choose the best path and backtrack if required, and choose the best path and give the result to the user. So, this method of prompting is tree of thought. The next option is graph of thought, which is slightly different from the tree of thought, because here also we have the nodes. We call each one as there we had the options. In this case we have the options, which are again the nodes. In tree of thoughts also here we have the nodes, but it is not a tree where in tree we had parallel. Here this is not parallel. They can connect. If you see, they can connect. We have different ideas. This is a node. Each node has an idea. This is not in parallel, but can merge or differ or contradict. So, similar to how we humans think. So, there are different ways in which we think, and based on the ideas that may merge or differentiate, a final insight can be achieved. And this kind of approach can be seen in research synthesis, some documents where the ideas are conflicting in nature, the data analytics, brainstorming exercises which have different ideas, some literature review. So, these categories will have this type of prompting techniques. Another type of prompting is iterative prompting, where we treat the LLM as a conversational partner, and through each prompt that we give, we first give generate a prompt and critique it and refine the prompt based on the previous prompt, again get the output, and if the output is not clear, again proceed to the exercise. So, this type is an iterative prompt. Like for example, first we can give summarize the data, and it may give some answer, the LLM will generate some answer, and based on these answer again we can ask it to, this is not correct, again summarize it better. So, it can again go ahead with whatever the user wants. So, this kind of approach is the iterative prompting. Mostly whatever we do with multiple steps is the iterative prompting kind. The next one is the negative prompting. Negative prompting comes with the constraints, in the sense or limitations. Tell the model what should be avoided, and this is useful for style, length and risk control. For example, we can say summarize the document within 6 statements or within 300 words, or we can also specify summarize so that others, it might be only for a specific group. So, this is best when it is paired with positive as well as positive instructions. So, the LLM can understand what is positive and what it could, how the actual information it should provide. Say this is an example, write a, and for actually an advertisement, write a product description for a new coffee maker. Here we have used the negative prompting. Do not use technical jargon. Why? Because it might, this advertisement might be used for the common man. And do not mention competitor brands. Do not exceed 100 words. These are an example of negative prompting. Now, how do we combine all these techniques? So, if you check this example, this is an example of writing a document. Act as a senior editor. So, the role is a senior editor. Write a summary of the attached article. Audience is the first year engineering students. Provide 3 examples of your writing style. Let us think step by step about core argument. Do not include any personal opinions. Title summary should be only 3 points with 200 words, and after writing it I will ask you to refine it. And if you look at this whole example, we have used almost all the components here with role, as a senior editor, the task and the context with the audience and the background, and we are providing the examples here. Examples assume that we are providing within the prompt. Here we have not stated it explicitly, but we will be providing it inside. The reasoning portion, which comes with 0 shot or 1 shot or multi shot. The constraints, we are specifying the negative prompt do not include. What is the format that is specified, title, summary, and the iterative type of prompting. So, all these types we are actually giving it, and when we give this, it generally the LLM should provide a high quality output. Again, it is based on the type of LLM that is generally given. But this session is about the different components and the types of prompt. Now, how do we choose which type of prompt? Say earlier we saw how do we choose the type of component. Here, how do we know that okay, we need to use whether one should use a 0 shot or 1 shot or multiple shot. So, what do you need? If it is a simple fact or a direct answer, it is a 0 shot, or if it is a consistent format or tone, it is 1 shot or few shot, or if it is more a reasoning or logic type like the arithmetic type or the logical questions that is asked, then it is chain of thought or 0 shot chain of thought. And if we have multiple options and evaluation where you have the trees where the tree of thought where we have everything in parallel, then it is tree of thought. There is a mistake here which is going to be evaluation, it is not S, multiple evaluation. And if it is going to be the synthesis of ideas, multiple ideas, then it is a graph of thoughts where different ideas can merge, some which actually acts like a human mind. And whatever we see in this session is about the different component types and the types of prompt like 0 shot, 1 shot or chain of thought prompts. In the next session, whatever we have seen here, I will give a short demo of practical exercises, some small examples we can feed inside ChatGPT and see how it responds, and then a conceptual overview of a large language model where we would see what a token is and what is the mean by context window. So, those jargons I will try to explain in detail. So, in the next session I will be dealing with the practical session and the overview of LLM. Thank you.